Are you a big fat f***ing wimp when it comes to whips? Are you a big fat wimp when it comes to whips? Yo, what is up? Thanks so much for making it this far. Here's the deal. Being a wimp is cool. Why? Because being a wimp put far fewer people in the hospital than being a full sender. No skill, all thrill will only get you so far on the bike. But at the end of the day, you don't learn anything from it, and it's not sustainable long term. So we want to work up to things that we are learning, right? And whips are one of those, because going sideways through the air is scary, and landing sideways is even scarier. And you probably just learned how to jump, so the idea of turning your bike, doing everything counterintuitive to what you just learned to get your bike sideways in the air probably sounds absolutely crazy. I'm going to break it down. I'm going to start with baby steps, and we're going to work our way up to sick whips for wimps. All right, so if you've watched my other jump videos, you know I talk a lot about leading with your body mass, and that is super important for whips. Why? Because it initiates the whip, and it also helps get you center again. And if you're coming down a little sideways, which, let's face it, a lot of good whips, you're not going to come down straight again. Leading with your body mass and nosing into the landing is going to help correct you when you land. Because we're wimps, we always worry about what happens in the worst case scenario. So I'm going to see how sideways I can get comfortably and still save it. And it's all by using my body weight to transition through the arc onto my front wheel on the landing. So let's do it. So if you cannot jump and lead with your body mass, you're not ready for whips yet. If you were skateboarding, you'd want to learn how to ollie before you learn how to kick flip. So that's kind of where we are at.
Yo, so initiating a whip is comprised of mainly 3 things. And I know what you're saying, committing to 3 things while going off a jump sounds super intimidating. Well, here's the secret. You actually only have to do 2 of the 3 things in any combination and with minimal effort. Yeah, you don't even have to try hard to achieve what onlookers would classify as a whip. Those 3 things are, number 1, carving off the jump, which I actually think it's better to refer to this as leaning off the lip, because leaning off the lip sounds way less scary. Number 2, turning the bars in the air immediately after liftoff to take advantage of that gyroscopic effect. And yeah, there's a little shoulder action in here as well. And number 3, twisting your hips in the air and using that booty your mother gave you. Now remember, you actually only have to do 2 of these 3 in any combination.
What's up, wimps? Let's talk about the body motions first. So when you want to do a whip properly, it starts with your shoulders and your upper body. When you're going off a jump and you don't want to whip, you want to be square, because that controls your trajectory. Everything's going to be controlled and predictable. Now, when you want to whip, you want to get off axis a little bit, so you want to turn your hips. To initiate that, you need to know that it starts in your shoulders. So let me try to portray the motion without the bike, okay? I'm gonna do it slow. So I'm coming up, I'm gonna drop my shoulder and start turning my shoulders. Out come my hips. I'm bringing my shoulders back to center. One more time. Coming up, I'm leaning, dropping my shoulder, bringing this arm and elbow to my side. What that's gonna do is it's gonna turn my shoulders a little bit. And then I push out my hips. But then after I push out my hips, I bring my shoulders and my chest back to center, and I kind of try to get up over my hips, my body mass over my hips, so that I can lead it back down to a straight landing. But I want to explain why it starts in the shoulders. Imagine if you tried to swing at a baseball and you didn't wind up. Okay, baseball's coming and you just went like that. It feels super awkward. There's no power, there's no control, there's no structure to the movement. It's just really abrupt and aggressive. Now, if you want to maximize the movement, you wind up first and swing through it. The same goes for whips. We want to wind up into our whip. What that's going to do is it's going to help us get sideways And then it's also gonna start that movement where we bring it back around, right? Sounds absolutely crazy, but I promise you it works. Now we're talking baby whips, okay? We're not talking, you know, Jackson Goldstone whips where there's a ton of body movement going off super big, steep kickers. So I'm gonna show you what the body motion looks like just here on flat ground, and you can actually practice this on flat ground in the dirt. Just we're warming up our shoulders and our hips. We're starting in our shoulders and we're transitioning to our hips. Whip. Carve, bar, turn, hips. Look at that, I whipped on the ground, on the concrete nonetheless. Feels super goofy, I know. So that's what you want to do to warm up the movement and get your hips loose and kind of get a feel for how your body just twisting the shoulders and then your hips controls the bike. And if you have a small jump, which we're kind of surrounded by small jumps, but they're super cool to learn on, you kind of have to get it back straight quickly. So it's a, got it? All right, so we found ourselves the super small roller. It doesn't have to be a bike park style roller. It doesn't have to be handmade or whatever. It can be a natural roller. They're all over the place. They're even out there in the grassy lawns. Just look for something that you can get a little bit of lift off of. It doesn't have to have a lip or anything. So let's talk about the carve or the line into it. When you're starting off, this line into it can be super mellow, but as you get better and as you feel out the motion, the line will become more aggressive. So I'm gonna do some magic and show you the line right. Now. So let's talk about one thing regarding that line I just drew. Notice how the line went straight off of the jump. It didn't curve off the jump. It didn't turn off the jump. It didn't do that. Because what will happen is if you turn off of the lip, it's gonna throw you really crooked and off balance and could easily lead to a dead sailor. We're a bunch of big fat wimps. We don't want dead sailors. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna focus on that carve so that it leads us straight off of the jump. That straightness is gonna feel awkward because we're carving into it and we're a little bit leaned and we're a little bit sideways. And you're gonna feel like the most sideways person in the world, but I guarantee that you're only gonna be just a little bit turned, okay? It's gonna feel super unnatural because you're not used to it.
So see, I come in here on the left so that it allows me the space to move to the right, which will then allow me the space to move to the left again. It's super subtle in this scenario because I'm just riding off a roller, but you can see that little carve up the transition causes me to lean a little bit. And when I pop in the air, my rear wheel just wants to keep going straight and pull out of that carve where my front wheel follows that carve, which gives me somewhat of a whip. Here it is again. This time I go just a little bit wider on the approach. Coming in too slow, I had to pedal a couple cranks. A little bit more of an angle here, a little bit more of a lean, but not too much. It's the lean that comes naturally with the carve, so it's nothing major in the upper body. But then when I pop up again, my back wheel just wants to continue off of the turn, out of the turn, and my front wheel tracks it. Here we are again on a single track example. Go to the left of the single track so that I can go right to the single track and carve left again. Here we go, I pop. In all these examples, you can tell there is very little hip movement and there is no bar movement. It's all in the carve, or more importantly, as I like to think of it, the lean that comes from the carve.
If I'm going up this jump down here and I want to whip out this way, then I want my carve to come in that way so I can carve off of it. And that ramp, that transition, the end of it where I get lift off, that transition should be in the kind of the center of my carve. So if I was carving, however my natural carve would be off of that jump down there, that would cut off my carve in like the middle. You can think of it this way too. If you were in a car going around a turn and you wanted the back end to go this way, to spin out this way, drift this way, then you're gonna wanna set up for it and turn left into the drift, and then your back end will kick out. Same way on a bike, so you don't have to overthink it because we're on a bike and we're leaning and we're not really going around a turn, we're just going off of a jump. Yo, what up? If you find this helpful at all, you can be super helpful and just hit subscribe. It takes 2 seconds, whereas what I'm doing takes hours, sometimes days to put these things together. And to hit publish, and then regret all of the decisions you made in the creation process. But anyway, All you gotta do is hit subscribe. I appreciate it so much. Hit like if you really like it. If you don't like it, hit subscribe so you can follow and make sure that I'm not continuously up to no good. Peace.
Now let's check out an example of a minor amount of lean, but a little bit more hip action.
Okay, so you saw that little baby kick out, which one might be your first step when you're learning how to whip off the bigger jumps. And that's okay, but the reason why it was a kick out was this. So I leaned slightly into it just because by nature, this trail kind of curves to the right. So I dropped my right shoulder. But what I did not do is I did not twist my bars and my elbows into it. You twist your arms. So your elbows rotate, this elbow and this arm comes in. If I want to whip this way, if I want to whip this way, it goes like this. So I initiate it like this. And like a whip, it kind of transitions through my shoulders, down my chest, and into my hips. But what I definitely do is I turn my shoulders. If my shoulders turn off center at all, I want to make sure that I turn them back to center to bring the bike back down straight, or at least the front wheel straight, because what that'll do is help me regain control even if my back end comes down sideways. So it looks like this again. And my head is always looking where I want to go. If you get super good, you might be able to look into it and really turn it like a moto whip. But for now, we're big fat wimps. We're just gonna take it easy. So we're just gonna go like this. So what you saw right there was kind of like a whip with very little carve, very little lean. But what I did was I turned the bars after I lifted off. And what that did was the gyroscopic effect helped turn that back wheel out. So it was really all bars, very little hips, very little carve. So you can see how if you apply the three things differently, so you can see how you, now we can fine tune the aggressive and the amount we apply to each of those three things. You know, maybe the trail's not wide and we can't carve into it, but then maybe we still want to whip, so then we're more aggressive in the initiation of the whip with our upper body and our handlebars.
So here I go. I like to think of the bar turn as not just a bar turn, but a sweeping motion with my outside hand. And I do it with authority because when you do it with more control and more authority, it transitions that gyroscopic effect to the rear end of the bikes and it'll give you a better whip naturally. So on these examples, I'm not carving. You can see I'm almost riding relatively straight off of the jump. And what you're seeing is from the bar turn and a little tiny bit of hip action, not a whole lot, but see? Riding almost straight off the transition into the bar turn and a little hips, and that gives me just a little whip. Again, the more you turn the bars with authority, the more you'll get out of the rear end. Here I go, just a very minor lean, but what I'm going to do as my rear wheel begins to leave the transition, I'm turning the bars slightly here. Right here, that does, it's going to translate to the rear end of the bike. I'm just going to let my hips go with the bike. There wasn't a big carve on this example, but then I turn the bars back straight to bring me into the landing.
All right, let's see if I missed anything here. All right, let's see. When a problem comes along, you must whip it. Before the cream sits out too long, you must whip it. When something's going, oh, these are the wrong notes. Don't get too caught up in trying to figure out which way to start first is the right way, because your body's going to tell you which way feels more comfortable, and just go with that. But as you're learning the one way, don't forget you got to learn the other way. So you might as well start working on the other way rather than cementing in that one motion and then going the other way feels completely, absolutely insane and you're back to wimpdom. Let's talk about the knees. Now, some people put their forward-facing knee. If I was whipping to the right, that would be my forward-facing knee. Some people really poke that out and get wide knees. Other people keep them real tight to the frame and really use their torso and their hips to get that whip out there. You know, either is correct. I think knees closer together looks better because you just look more in control, more collected. One thing I do want to mention is you don't really want to land on the knuckle on a tabletop or definitely a double when you're learning to whip. if you're coming up short and landing short like that, chances are you're still a little bit sideways in the air, and that knuckle is not going to be friendly. It's not going to be kind to you. If you're going to move up to the bigger jumps, you got to make sure you're confident enough and have the experience to clear them. One other hot tip for you, make sure that your stem is torqued down to spec and it's not moving, because if you're going to land front heavy, which you want to do, and sometimes sideways, which can happen, if that's loose, it can torque your front wheel in one direction, your handlebars in another direction, and then you are twisted up, my friend, and you are body slamming terra firma.
Are you afraid to lean off the lip? Well, go off straight, turn your bars and twist your hips a little bit and you'll be whipping. Are you afraid to turn your bars? Well, lean a little bit and twist your hips and you'll be whipping. If you don't have hips like Shakira, lean a little bit off the lip and turn your bars and you will be whipping. Remember, just a little bit of the two of the three things and you will be whipping. So there's no shame in being a wimp. It's self-preservation, and statistically you will live longer. I think I never looked it up, but it sounds good.
Ah, yeah.